what are those key things that hold websites back from being, the fuel that they can be in a practice. And so we've really seen over the last year to 2 years just a really big shift when it comes to search engine optimization and the rise of AI and how people are finding and using websites.
Hello, and welcome back to the Scaling It Therapist podcast. This is the show where we help mission-driven leaders and professionals turn their experience into meaningful courses, programs, and resources. And I want to help you put your mission in motion. And today, I have a special guest, Daniel Fava from Private Practice Elevation. Hello, Daniel.
Hey, James. How's it going? Thanks for having me.
No, well, thank you so much for coming on. I always enjoy talking with you and talking about web pages and marketing and sometimes AI. Today we're going to talk about bottlenecks that a good website helps private practice owners break through. So I'm really excited to dig into that. You always have some good notes. Before we get in, how's life? What's going on? What's new with you?
Life is good. Life feels busy, and I'm really trying to just embrace that busyness with our two young boys, 9 and soon to be 5 on Monday. So yeah, it's kind of a cool season as they're coming into things that they love or do well, such as our 5-year-old is really good at soccer, and he just started soccer again, his second season. And so, yeah, it's just fun to kind of see them come into their own. So it's definitely keeping us busy trying to balance, business ownership, and my wife has a private practice as well. So she's got a business too. And so, yeah, it's just a lot of stuff going on, but it's all good. It's all good.
Yeah. And thanks for taking the time to carve out to speak to us and to the listeners. Yeah. And when your kids play soccer, is it still like a bunch of grapes running around, or do they stick to their position?
It's mostly chaos, but kind of the cool thing and the thing that I was so proud of, like just watching my son Caleb, was I could see him like really calculate where the ball is going, especially when it's like defense. Like the ball would come out of that pack of chaos and he would like cut it off at like a trajectory. I'm like, oh my gosh, he knows how to play defense, and like I haven't taught him that, and it's just very natural for him. So it's really cool to see.
Neat.
Yeah.
I was never very good at soccer. I didn't understand it until I started watching some of it, and I'm like,
Yeah.
oh, that's how it's supposed to be played. But it was too late for me.
Yeah. I played until about middle school, when I got cut from the team, and I said, okay, I'm going to start doing lacrosse now. So that was my journey. Lacrosse was really my sport growing up.
Well, basketball was mine. I was 6'2", taller than many people, which allowed me to get rebounds, even though I wasn't good.
You're still important. You're still
I still
part of the team.
Yeah, I showed up on the rebound stat, not necessarily the scoring stat or anything else.
Nice.
So, all right. So let's talk about web pages, because web pages are very important for how people find you these days. And there are bottlenecks to those web pages, and you help private practice owners break through. Why don't you tell us a little bit about Private Practice Elevation, and then just jump into the bottlenecks? What does Private Practice Elevation do?
Yeah, sure. So Private Practice Elevation, we are a small agency. We have about 9 employees now, which is crazy for me to say. I really started, my journey came from helping my wife and getting her private practice online back in 2012. Designed and launched a WordPress website for her when she was first starting that. And that really helped kind of fuel those first, clients that came to her and, start things in motion. Now she's got a full, group practice growing, really well. And so she's always been kind of like my guinea pig when it comes to online marketing. And so in about 2016, I launched out basically as a freelancer, building websites for therapists, just kind of using that experience to help others. And so that has really grown into what Private Practice Elevation is today. And so our 3 main services are custom website design and development, and that could also include copywriting. We have the copywriting piece as well. And then WordPress care plans. So, if you don't want to be the one who has to take care of your website, and you're on WordPress, you just want a team to make sure that everything is secure, backed up, working well, plus, making changes to the website as well, hosting, that's our care plans. And then also search engine and now AI optimization work. So, getting you really established, like helping you reach that next elevation in your online marketing, with a great website, and then kind of fueling that with the SEO work to get more folks. So that's really the gist of what we do here at PPE.
So yeah, and so that means you've seen a lot of web pages and gone through a lot of data, and you
Yeah.
understand what some of the barriers or the bottlenecks are for people with their websites. And that's going to be our
Yeah.
topic today. What are the bottlenecks, and why do they happen when you examine web pages?
Yeah, so I think this was a great topic idea that when I asked you, hey, what would your audience want to hear about? You mentioned about bottlenecks that really got me thinking about what are those key things that hold websites back from being the fuel that they can be in a practice. And so we've really seen over the last year to 2 years just a really big shift when it comes to search engine optimization and the rise of AI and how people are finding and using websites. And it used to be that, and I'm having the same conversation with just multiple people every week in, week out. And they say, I've had a website for a while and it worked. It was fine. And then suddenly about a year ago, when these shifts really started to happen, it's just really dropped off. I'm not seeing a lot of traffic. I'm not getting a lot of leads. And so I think it used to be okay that we just had a website. This is our home. This is my digital brochure. But now that is often not enough. And there's some key things that we need to do to make sure that, websites break through these bottlenecks that we're going to talk about and help you reach, those ideal clients. So I have four bottlenecks that we can talk about today. And so number one is that people can't find you. It's that bottleneck of traffic. You're kind of held back and, people aren't finding you. Number two, people aren't sure you're the right fit. And so that is kind of a connection bottleneck that can happen. Number three, people visit your site, but don't actually reach out. And that's a trouble with conversions. And number four, bottleneck comes a little bit more close to, the actual therapist. And that's you spend too much time answering the same questions. And so that actually can help, hinder your conversions as well. It's kind of related to the other pieces. So I think a really great website is going to help reduce friction in all of these areas. And the good news is that you could have maybe just one of these present. And so you can really focus in and, really improve that. Some people might have few of these present. And so, these are all kind of layered one on top of the other that we can continue to, move a website forward and, make sure that it's really performing for the private practice.
Yeah, and it's really cool that there are people who have, like you, that understand the problems, because sometimes if you're not in it day in and day out, you understand I have a problem, like
Yeah.
I'm not getting the conversions, or people visit me but there's nobody's clicking the form. You have a problem, but you don't know how to solve it.
Yeah.
And having somebody in your corner that helps you through these things is really key, because as business owners, sometimes you're not the best person to do all these things. Like, you can do some of it
Absolutely.
with guidance, and I know you have guided courses and things, but sometimes it's just not. You add value when you are doing your best work, and I don't think sometimes your best work is fighting with HTML code or
Yeah.
doing some of those things. Like, there's people out there who love that, and
Mm.
they get their joy from solving these problems, and they can
Yeah.
do it so much more faster, quicker, better than
Yeah.
if I had to do some of this. I'd have to, like, watch a course, learn how to do it, fight with the program. Even though I
Hmm.
actually like doing some of those things,
Yeah.
um, it's, as a practice owner, you got to think, is this worth my time? So, anyways, that's a top
Hmm.
level. Like,
Yeah.
I'm really I'm pro delegation, okay?
Yeah,
And
absolutely.
I'm pro delegation because I struggle with it myself, and I know when I do delegate
Hmm.
these things, a lot goes a little smoother, and I'm happier, and things
Yeah.
get done better. So,
Yeah.
anyways, let's dive into some of the bottlenecks here. How about bottleneck number one? The right clients can't find you.
Yeah. Yeah. So I mean, this really comes down to SEO and visibility. And so, like I mentioned in like that scenario that we're seeing kind of play out is that, people have a website, it's just kind of been there, it's worked in the past. Now some people maybe they're relying more on referrals or other websites, directories, Psychology Today, local networks, stuff like that. But we want to make sure that the website itself too is, constantly referring you organic traffic and new clients, like, because that could be a really, fuel for your practice. In my wife's case, she's got, more than half of her new clients come from organic traffic, people finding her online. So we want to make sure that you don't have your eggs all in, that basket of just, referrals, word of mouth, or just Psychology Today. We want to make sure that organic traffic is coming to you, people can find you. And so, that comes down to SEO. And so some of the things that we want to make sure happen and just kind of some tips or some approaches that you can make, it really comes down to that shift that we talked about with AI and SEO and how Google is now doing these AI previews. What they're doing is they're no longer really just showing you like, hey, here's the top 10 websites that answer your question, but now they're pulling from trusted sources. And so your goal is to think about it not in the terms of how can I rank for this keyword, but how can I be the most trusted source on a given topic. And so those topics can come down to your specialties or the services that you offer and the populations that you work with. So we recommend that you structure your website around those specific issues and populations you work with. And so you want to make it as clear as possible to Google and your website visitors who you help and how you help them and where you're located. And so a lot of times when people say like, hey, I'm not getting any traffic from Google at all, or I used to get some, it's really dropped off. We'll see that they don't have those specific pages, devoted pages for each service or specialty that they offer because Google can't trust you, and even ideal clients can't trust you fully when you just have a landing page that is just like, here's all my services, here's a bulleted list. It's just a lot of confusion. But if you have a devoted landing page for couples counseling in a Nashville or specific, like super specific trauma therapy for women in Atlanta, or trauma therapy for new mothers in Atlanta, like very specific. On that page, you can answer those really specific, frequently asked questions that those clients have. And it's those types of questions and sections on those pages, on those sub pages that get pulled into those AI previews. And so there's kind of just a big shift happening in how we approach SEO. It used to be like we just write an article based on a keyword. We check that off. Okay, great. It's on our website. Now let's just wait. Hopefully we will show up, maybe get some backlinks to it, that sort of thing. But now it's really focused on topics, like really topics and digging in. And you can even expand your content surrounding each of these specialties by doing more longer form articles related to those specialties that answer specific questions on your website. They link back to those specialty service pages. So yeah, that's kind of just one tip for when it comes to the SEO piece is make sure that you have that structure in place and you're kind of thinking about it a little bit differently going forward.
Yeah. Thinking about how to show up with those AI recommendations. Um, like it's another level that I figured I knew how to show up in the page rank. Like if you get in the top 10, that seemed to make sense. Like if you do these things, your
Hmm.
page will show up, your keyword and your page will show up higher and higher. So keep doing those things. But when it comes to ranking with AI, like my brain hasn't connected to how to do that yet.
Yeah. Yeah, I think it really comes down to making sure that you are answering specific questions. Like we really want to dig in. I'm gonna take a step back. A lot of what we've done in the past still works, but now it's really just kind of digging in a little bit further on the structure of your website, making sure that everyone understands who you are, where you are, what are your certifications. Google talks about like making sure that you showcase your expertise, your authoritativeness, your trustworthiness, all that stuff. And so having just information on your website, related to symptoms of anxiety, just kind of, we don't want people who are just looking for information. We're looking for people who have the intent of actually working with a therapist, private practice. And so they've got specific questions on what does it look like to work with you? Why should I trust you? So we want to really showcase those elements on the website rather than just providing information. And so we're really digging into frequently asked questions, and those are kind of spread throughout those service pages, or taking a frequently asked question and writing a whole blog post about that, and really, connecting that back to those specialty pages to really create that
So
authority
it's
that Google's
so
going to
it's
then cite
a
you.
so you're creating a page specifically for a question somebody might ask that links back to what you do.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
Yeah.
It's a little for the human, it's like, oh, that's a lot, but for the computer, it's like, well, this is what I need.
Right. Yeah. And Google and AI is looking at like not just one page, it's looking at your whole website now, and how does content work together on these topics to show that you are a trustworthy source. You have lots of resources connected to these topics and these questions that these clients are asking.
Before we move on to bottleneck number 2, your visitors aren't sure you're the next fit. I'm wondering, is it worth it? Like, I have hundreds of blogs. Would it be worth it to go back to those blogs and link them to um you create a page for the question and link those blogs to that page and then link that page to the service? Is it worth it to go back, or do you have to just rely on new stuff?
It's always worth kind of looking at the data and seeing like which pages are performing and which pages aren't. Like there's been a few of our clients who have, written blog posts for years and years, and it's almost like there's too much information. And so, now Google is looking at quality over quantity, really, is what it comes down to. So, sometimes there could be, lots of content that's not really performing. You might want to maybe combine some blog posts together. We've done that for some folks, but it really takes looking at the data. If one
Mhm.
blog post is working really well, just kind of re-optimization, and yes, connecting those links together can be helpful.
Okay. How about bottleneck number 2? Visitors aren't sure you're the right fit.
Yeah, and so if someone comes to your website and let's say you are doing SEO, you're getting some traffic. Really, the next question that they're going to be asking is this the right therapist for me? And this is that trust bottleneck. And we kind of talked about this is related to SEO. So a lot of therapy websites we see, they unintentionally make this harder because they're focusing, or in the past they focused so much on the therapist, on the modality, like I said, like the information, like here's what I'm trained in. It's good to mention like what you're trained in, but it shouldn't really be the focus. So people might say like we use CBT or EMDR for blah blah blah, and some people are in tune and aware with those terms. So I'm not saying leave those off completely, but don't make that really the first and foremost thing. So we really want to focus in on the ideal client and their challenges and where they're at. So, at first they're coming up to a page, they've got, anxiety, or they're nervous about the process. So they want to know, like, do you understand what I'm going through, the challenges that I'm going through? And do I feel safe reaching out to you? So we want to build trust by speaking directly to the client's experience and where they're at, using warm human language, making sure that our website isn't a lot of therapy speak or just, informational. And we want to also just really be clear. Like, clarity is the most helpful thing that you can do for connecting, converting, and even SEO. Like, you have to make it clear. So make sure you're clearly explaining who you help and how you help them. So just kind of shifting that language can make a really big difference. So like you're saying things like if you've been feeling constantly on edge, overwhelmed, stuck in cycles of anxiety, stuff like that. Not just we treat anxiety in Atlanta. Here's how you get started. Like we really want to connect with people. I know that you're familiar with StoryBrand and Donald Miller and that sort of approach, and that kind of harkens back to that. Is that your ideal client is the most knowledgeable expert about themselves, and so we want to let them know we know exactly what you're going through. Here's how I help. Here's the ways I help. Here's how you get started. And that also kind of goes back to that SEO piece. Having those individual service pages allows you to really dig into that sort of language, because a couples therapy client is going to be way different than someone who's coming to you for individual trauma therapy.
So what I've learned is that you got to connect with them by starting with a problem or starting with something at the top that they can see like, oh, they understand me, they get me. And I like your example of asking that question. Do you feel on edge? Do you feel like you're stuck in this cycle of anxiety? Like that's speaking their language. That's sort of like the first date, you know? Like, you're not
Mm-hmm.
asking them to buy from you right away. You're
Yeah.
asking them to get to know you,
Yeah.
and then you move the longer they stay on the page, the more information you can give them about what you do, but they
Right.
don't care about how many years of experience you have or what degrees you have until they feel like, "Oh, they understand me and they can help me."
Yeah. Exactly. Exactly. Yeah. And and just kind of going back to SEO, when I said about clarity, like we also we want it to just be very clear. Like when someone lands on that service page, the first thing they're going to see is couples therapy in Atlanta, like not like big bold text. It's like, you feel like you've drifted in your relationship, like we still want it to be clear. Like this is the service that we offer, and people kind of understand that. It goes back to that intent of I'm looking for a couples therapist. And then we go into that connecting with their current situation, whatever that might be. Like you said, like that helps them, feel seen, and like we understand where they're coming from.
Yeah, it's really important. Um, uh, so how does this connect with bottleneck number 3? People actually visit the website, but then they don't reach out, they don't fill out the form, nothing happens.
Yeah, so we're kind of building layers here. Like we got the visibility piece that means traffic is coming in. Then we're working on how do we connect with that traffic with those ideal clients. And so we talked about kind of copy and language. And the next step is really making sure that people actually convert. So sometimes people do get traffic to the website, but inquiries are still low. And this is a lot of work that we do with our SEO clients, because sometimes when we're looking at the data and the KPIs sort of between the funnel from seeing you on Google, then clicking on your listing there on the results page, to then landing on the page, to actually converting. Well, if that conversion is lower than what we really want to see, then like, we kind of figure out, okay, what's going on? What's causing people from not taking that step? And so, again, this really comes down to clarity. Like we really want to clearly guide people towards the next step. And some of this is, pretty simple stuff. So just a few tips, clear calls to action, like figure out what is the one next step that someone can take in order to get started, and become that next client. And a lot of people we work with do that schedule a consultation. So just clear buttons and whatever that call to action might be. So like for us, we've got on pretty much every website we build, we have, a clear, simple menu navigation on the top, and then a button on that top right, schedule a consultation, and it's there and it's constant and people can see it. It stands out a little bit. It shouldn't get, washed away in the colors of your website. And then another thing to do is, oh, and before I get on to the next point here, make sure that that one thing that you're going to ask people to do is carried throughout the website. So you want it to say schedule a consultation like throughout the website, not call now, schedule a consultation, fill out this form, having these different buttons that ask them to do different things. It's okay to have different buttons, but we want to make sure that consistent language and color really helps them know, hey, this is the next step I take. And another thing to do is just to make sure that it's just easy to find your contact info, such as your phone number or your email address. You'd be amazed how many times that it's like buried and people can't find it. And this is something really important on mobile. A lot of people, they're busy. That we want to make it. We want to remove like any friction from someone actually reaching out. And so one thing that we love to do on our clients' websites is to have a constant bar across the bottom. It says call now to schedule, and so if someone's on mobile, they're able to just call and, and that goes, right to the practice. Or if you've got an intake coordinator, even better, they can handle that. Other things we're doing as well is text to get started, or call to get started. We can have those two buttons on the mobile. And so that works really well with my wife's clientele because they're busy, they're working professionals, so they can just text and say, hey, I'm interested in this. And that kind of starts that process. Another thing you want to do is just explain exactly what happens after someone's going to contact you. Like, don't leave it up to them to wonder what's going to be the next step. And you could include that on those service pages. Like, here's 3 steps of how we're going to get started. So it really paints the picture. And this is really helpful. People are, especially if they're going to a therapist for the first time, they're nervous, they're anxious, they don't know the process. And that creates more anxiety when you're like, oh, I don't know if this person's going to reach out to me. Having a lot of trouble in my relationship and I really need to find somebody quickly. And, this is a way we can serve our clients by making it clear about what's going to happen. And so when someone feels taken care of, that builds trust. This is also just another trust factor. When people feel taken care of, like they're more likely to then become, your next client. Another thing is just if you have contact forms on your website, keep them simple. Don't make them too long, especially if this is a new person just reaching out. You might have longer forms when you kind of get a little bit further in the process. When somebody needs, specific help, you might have other intake forms, obviously. But for just, those first people, the first time reaching out, make them simple. And then just, really just reassuring people about what does that first session look like, what to expect. A lot of the time when it comes for our SEO clients, our monthly SEO clients, going back to that strategy of just building that authority and trustworthiness, we'll often write articles related to like, here's what to expect in your first session of, anxiety therapy for your teen, like getting really specific and kind of including like who we're working with, that sort of thing. And so, on those service pages, we can make sure that people can link to that article. And so we're just making sure that we're building trust and we're just removing any friction from someone converting on the website.
Yeah, I can imagine somebody first time looking for a therapist and they're not even sure that they want you as a therapist and they see a form that is, 10, 20 questions long and they're like, I'm out.
Yeah.
I'm not gonna fill that out.
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah. That
let's
happened recently to me. We were looking for an occupational therapist for our oldest. And they had everything just pointed to this big long form. And we just had a few general questions. It was like, how do we get somebody on the phone? Every time we called, it went to voicemail, like no one was picking up live. And so, yeah, that kind of created a bad taste in our mouth because they kept trying to send us back to this form. We're like, we just want to understand, like, we want you to understand our needs and let us know, like, is this a good fit? Like, should we be seeking out occupational therapy? We had those sorts of questions. And so that was frustrating.
Yeah, a little bit of friction there.
Yeah.
That leads us to the last bottleneck where the practice owner is doing too much back and forth. You
Yeah.
become the information desk. So
Yeah.
what's this bottleneck all about?
Yeah, so this is, like a really true bottleneck. You hear a lot of the times when we're talking about entrepreneurship, growing your business, like you're constantly, I know I am, recognizing where have I become the bottleneck in these different systems. And so a lot of if an ideal client has a lot of unanswered questions, that's going to put more on you to then answer those questions to convert them. And this is kind of, when you're coming off of the website and maybe you're starting to, have those conversations on the phone, or you're doing those consultations, you want to make sure that you are quickly getting into how you are most suited to help those ideal clients, rather than spending all this time on those consultations talking about, do you take insurance? What are your fees? What's going to happen in the first session? What issues do you treat? How do you work? All those things. So we can use our website to answer those FAQs in a few places on the website, making sure that it's very clear before somebody reaches out. So we can get right into, hey, what's your challenge? Okay, here's how I typically work with folks in that challenge, and really getting into the heart of serving their challenge, and where they're at. And so, this is great because it helps you save time. It helps you prepare those potential clients to understand more about what is it going to look like and how you work, even building rapport with them on the phone, rather than here's my list of questions and you just answer it. And it's always more, beneficial or easier, I guess I'll say, to convert somebody who already has a sense of how you work. What is it going to look like? They know the process. It's just more about kind of creating that connection and that rapport, so they understand whether they're a good fit, and you understand whether they're a good fit too. And you can, weed people out that maybe aren't.
Yeah, you can answer that question. Some people are afraid to put that on their page because, well, I want the opportunity to see everyone, or I need every last client.
Yeah.
But sometimes a client that's a bad fit is worse than a no client at all.
Oh yeah.
And this type of page, like I subscribe to somebody who's like, I have a am I a good fit section. Like, am
Yeah.
I a good fit here? Somebody, you can turn it into a page, or you can like embed it into some sort of FAQ.
Yeah.
But that you want to send the signals that you are at the exact right spot, or you want
Mhm.
to send the signal you are not at the right spot, and you
Yeah.
can stop wasting your time
Yep.
and move on.
Yeah.
You're shaking your head. What do you agree about that?
No, I mean, I've seen that in my own business too. Like, as you gain experience and you serve more people, you understand who do I do my best work with? Like, who do we serve best? And there's also the sense too of like, what types of clients do you want more of?
Mm,
For us, especially when it comes to SEO, the websites and the practices that get the best ROI or the best in performance are the clients who kind of keep their hands off. They just trust us, and so we want to build that trust, and make sure that people understand this is how we work and this is what we're doing, so that we can, get those ideal clients and get the results for them. And we really want to get great results. And just like, any therapist wants to really serve people and make sure that we're impacting their lives for the better. And so you could do somebody a disservice by taking on a client that's not a really great fit. So yeah, making it really clear and even understanding for yourself, so that when you have those consultations, it's going to help you really kind of, create that momentum and that fuel in your practice with, great ideal clients.
great. So we've talked about the four bottlenecks. Can you give us a summary of the what you're recommending here for the listeners?
Yeah. So we really we basically talked through like the journey, that someone's going to take, from how people find you. That's the SEO piece. How do people build trust with you on your website? And that comes down to that language piece, the messaging on the website, putting them first and their challenges first. How do they take the next step? Making it really clear on what you expect them to do and how to do it. And then the last piece is really understanding what working with you is going to look like, and making sure that we are answering those questions on the website so that we can have better conversations in those consultations, or in those email exchanges when someone is thinking about working with you.
Yeah, and I think when you do these things, your website stops becoming something like that's static and people don't
Yeah.
respond to, but it really becomes a growth tool or a growth engine for your practice.
Yeah, yeah, and I think too, like, it all comes back to serving your ideal
Mm,
clients. Like, you could think about your website as like, how does this serve someone, whether they work with me or not? Like, we want people to feel seen and known in their challenges, and then, yeah, obviously, we want to use our website to grow our business, but you can kind of think of it in a different way, and that can help you create more blog content. It can help you increase or improve the content on service landing pages by making sure that it's really answering people's questions and serving them where they're at.
cool. So, Daniel, if people want to find more about you and your services and what you offer, where can they go?
Yeah, best place to go is privatepracticeelevation.com, and you can find our resources there. We've got some free downloads that are going to help you with different aspects of your online marketing, and we also have a podcast as well under the same name, Private Practice Elevation. So you can find us on Apple, Spotify, all those good places.
Amazing. Daniel, thank you. Really, thank you so much for being generous with your time, your information, and just thanks for being a friend of the show.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks so much for having me, James.
All right, listeners, you've heard it from Daniel. You can use your webpage to help you help clients find you, trust you, and take the next step and understand what it's like to work with you. If you're struggling with your webpage and it's not doing all it should, I recommend checking out Daniel and Private Practice Elevation to get the support so you can continue to put your mission in motion. We will see you next time. Before we go, I want to thank our partners who help make this show possible. They are Humor Speaks, RevKey, The Practice Collab, Arc Integrated, Therasas CRM, Guest Compliance and Consulting LLC, Freedom Business Solutions, Bossco, and Profit Comes First. These are pro-level sponsors at the scalingtherapistservices.com. It's a directory to help you break down your business bottlenecks. And one more encouragement for the week. If your website feels like a bottleneck, don't try to fix everything at once. Start with one simple question. Can the right person quickly see that I understand their problem and know the next step to take? Work through some of the bottlenecks, and if you need help, get a professional like Daniel at Private Practice Elevation. They're wonderful, wonderful to work with, and they produce good work. Remember, confusion slows people down. So break through that bottleneck. Take one small step this week to make your website easier to trust, easier to use, and easier to act on. That's how you can put your mission in motion this week. We'll see you next time.